everybody. I'm Carlie. You'll have to excuse me, I've got a cold. And this is my dad. So we were asked today because we've been working with Nest to raise some money, which Dad will talk about afterwards. So I was asked to kind of talk about my story very briefly and my journey. So in May 2010, aged 23, I was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome. I've never, ever been poorly before, so it was quite a shock to be diagnosed with something that I'd never even heard of. I remember the first time that I saw the consultant, he casually diagnosed me with nephrotic syndrome like it was an everyday kind of thing, saying things like kidney biopsy, steroids, immunosuppressants, cannula, IV, medication. This was all totally new language to me and one that I never thought I would have to learn. I was absolutely terrified, to say the least, and mostly about the unknown. I spent a long time in hospital over the next couple of months, trying out lots of different medications and having a kidney biopsy. The biopsy confirmed it was nephrotic syndrome, but still no medication was working. I spent a lot of those months lying in my hospital bed thinking that I was never going to live a normal life again. I was never going to be able to hold down a job, have children, and no one would ever want to live their life with me because of this illness. For anyone diagnosed with any illness, after the adrenaline has worn off and the initial diagnosis and all the visitors have been and gone, you're left lying there with a sense of loneliness. During the first year of my illness, there was lots of ups and downs. Weekly hospital appointments, sometimes daily, that was a negotiation to get me out of hospital. And continuous, what felt like relentless changes in my medication. I was desperate to go back to work, desperate for normality, and desperate to feel better. I'd put on a lot of weight due to the steroids, was constantly feeling poorly and tired, and suffered with horrific cramp, all the usual side effects that we read on the back of a box. But at the end of the year, I decided to make a change. I've always loved life, and I like to make the most of every situation, and hope to always see the positives with everything in life. So that year I lost 4 stone, I worked hard for a promotion, and I looked at every day that I was out of hospital and feeling a little better as positive. In the coming years, I relapsed a lot. I cried a lot, I laughed a lot, and I loved a lot. I met my now fiancé, who loves me because who I am, including my illness and my ridiculous amount of tablet taking. I felt lucky to have the life I have, lucky that I can be in remission for a number of weeks or months at a time, lucky that my steroids have slightly reduced, and lucky to have the most inspirational family and friends. I learned that nephrotic syndrome does not define me, but I define it. On the 18th of October 2015, the most amazing thing happened to me and my family. I had a little healthy boy called Jacob, who was born via C-section at 38 weeks, who was £7.9 already, so you can imagine how big he would have been. He's the most precious thing in all of our lives, and the pregnancy was extremely challenging, having the illness. And there was lots of medical appointments, lots of changes in medicine going on. But I came out of it healthy and he came out of it healthy. If somebody had told me when I was diagnosed that I would have all this and feel the way that I do now, I would never have believed them. But it's happened and I continue to feel one of the luckiest people alive. So now I'm just going to hand over to my dad to talk about the ridiculous challenge that him and his wife did last year.
Follow that, as they say. That's amazing. And like a lot of people in this room, I've got the parents' journey. I've had that sort of awful stage at the beginning where Carlie was rushed into hospital, put on a huge amount of weight, 25 kilos in no time at all. And you're desperate, you don't know what's happening, and you're so confused. You've never heard of this condition before, this pernicious condition, and you've never heard of it before. And it's terrible. And you go through the first months of this diagnosis, we're in a state of utter confusion and panic and all of those emotions that probably you all know so well. So,
I'm just trying to work the technology.
She's obviously not leaving it to me. Yeah. So I was lucky, and I feel lucky for three reasons in a way. That first of all, we have the NHS, which for all its flaws and it's an amazing organisation that was there when we needed it. So thank you to everybody who works long and hard in the NHS. You've helped us enormously. Secondly, we had charities. Now, for a lot of us, today it's about information, and we've learnt so much and found out new stuff about this, about nephrotic syndrome. So charities perform a huge role in helping us understand what we or our children are going through. So amazing job. So huge thank you to the charities. You're the undersung heroes sometimes. And thirdly, my daughter. How proud am I of my daughter? She's amazing. So that was my first journey. So what seemed like a great idea in the pub one night was, what should we do? Why don't we cycle from Land's End to John O'Groats? You know, finely tuned athletes like ourselves, on a tandem, unsupported, on our own. What could go wrong? It seemed like it was the idea of a genius, but it was a celebration, really. Celebration of the fact that, first of all, our little miracle grandson had appeared against all the odds, and how pleased were we. Carlie had grasped life, and she was doing brilliantly at work, new relationship. So it was a celebration of that, and also a celebration of my lovely wife down there, who's survived 5 years after being diagnosed with breast cancer. So we decided we'd do two things, really. We'd A, complete the course, and B, raise money for charity. So our two chosen charities were Nephrotic Syndrome and for breast cancer. So the idea there was we would, although we're retired people now and not got so many contacts, we'd try and raise £1,000 for the charities and try and complete the course. So breast cancer, it's probably not that important that you raise the profile of it, but with nephrotic syndrome, it was for me and for Mary really important that we raised the profile of the charity, and people could understand a little bit of what we'd gone through as parents, what our daughter had gone through as a sufferer, and help us raise money for those causes. So how's that? That's us at the start. So there's me wearing my my T-shirt, proudly wearing my T-shirt, and Mary with hers. So lovely sunny day, you know, beautiful, sun on our back, the wind in our hair. Well, actually I have to use a bit of imagination for that one. But we set off, and there's Carlie. Now, hasn't she changed?
Oh God!
So this was her.
I did not put this presentation together.
Yeah. She's going to tell me it's a wide-angle lens there. So there we were at the start, looking so confident. Beautiful country we live in. And that's us half when I said what could possibly go wrong. That's me changing the front tyre in a thunderstorm in the middle of Worcester with a new tyre. Oh, I think. Did I put this on?
It's really loud.
Sorry. So that is what can go wrong when the route that your sat nav takes you down canals with gates and bridges and rain. So it was a fantastic journey, but we actually lived just outside Bristol, and we had sunshine all the way through Devon and Cornwall, all the hills, nightmare, and then we got to Bristol, and then from Bristol to the Scottish borders, it rained. It rained every day, torrential, soaked, cycling down muddy tracks on a tandem, not the best thing in the world to do. But we made it to Scotland, and the sun came out in Scotland. I mean, how rare is that? So we had this fantastic journey. All along the route, we met some wonderful people who, you know, there was the odd comment like to Mary, "Are you doing this with your dad?" But the same people that did that was the golf club. They came over at the end of the evening and said, "We've had a whip round for you. We've got £60. We think what you're doing is wonderful." I mean, you couldn't argue with that. It was wonderful. A little old lady just before the that canal thing, she chased after us and said, "Oh, I've got to give you some money." She said, "I've only got a bag here. Every penny, it's there. Have it." And it was 60 pence. But 5p's, 2p's. So it was wonderful things like that raised our spirits. And so we did have the odd bad day. But generally, once we got to Scotland, we'd almost cycled ourselves fit. But the moment we went over the border, everybody was saying to us, "Ooh, you'll never get over the Berriesdale Braes." Excuse the Scottish accent, but I'm from Birmingham, really. And so, you're doomed. You'll never do it. So we halfway, and this was another thing that halfway through this forest, in the middle of nowhere, we were cycling along, and we saw the sign for Aldi Burn. And there underneath it was that? We cycled past them. That's us. Absolutely in the middle of nowhere, the back of beyond. And somebody had phoned their friend to go and put the signs out. And on a kind of tiring day like that, it was a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So that's us. Oh, well, there we are, John O'Groats, and this is the last day. So Carlie's read something out, so I think I'll read something out. I kept a daily report going on Facebook, which went to all of our friends. They shared it. Their friends shared it. Everybody shared it. So it was brilliant for raising the profile of what we were doing and what we were doing it for the Nephrotic Trust. And so basically, day 21. We did it in 21 days. This is nearly 1,000 miles that we'd got to at the start of that day. So, woohoo! We've only been and gone and done it. We Shuey McPhee, Sir Alex Ferguson, Nicola Sturgeon, the Biggin, Jimmy Shandon, little Jimmy Cranky. We aced the Berriesdale Braes. When half of Scotland said, "You're doomed," we rode up loud, breathing, sobbing and gasping and proud. 1 mile at 14% was a little slow and tricky, but our long-established get into the lowest gear as soon as possible and grind it out technique worked. Not saying we were slow, but I watched a flower blossom as we rode past. After the 3 huge climbs, in the sun, thank you Lord, we then had a full day of undulating climbs and downhills. It was a hard day, 54 miles and nearly 3,000 feet climbed. I would say a victory sprint into John O'Groats, but it was a beast of a headwind, and it was more like a half-mile wobble and strain. And then the rain came, horizontal. Finally, I think we've flown the flag for Nephrotic Syndrome Trust and breast cancer sufferers. Carlie and Mary were my inspiration for attempting this. The way they handle and deal with adversity and life-threatening illness just beggars belief. Carlie, despite the life-changing diagnosis, has just been a joy to us. And then for her to finally produce baby Jacob, well, what can I say? And for anyone who gets the news that Mary got 5 years ago, please look at what she's done and take heart. She never ever complains, just seizes life and lives it. 2 truly inspirational girls. Me, I'm just the bloke on the front. Thank you.